Picture this: heavy, waterlogged leather footballs, incredibly muddy pitches, and thick, clunky boots. Long before we had 4K cameras capturing every single micro-movement on the pitch, the actual groundwork for modern South American football flair was being laid down. When we watch the mesmerizing agility of players like Neymar, Vinny Jr., or Lionel Messi today, we're witnessing a lineage that stretches back nearly a century. Today, we're going to look back to that foundational era to explore an incredible debate. We'll be comparing two largely forgotten titans of pre-WW2 South American football who practically defied gravity, set unimaginable records, and became absolute legends of the game.
So it begs the question, right? Who was the absolute greatest South American footballer before the TV era? Before modern footage could turn players into global superstars literally overnight, two men basically ruled the continent. And, okay, this is where the story gets super fascinating. Both of these guys actually shared the exact same, really specific nickname, the Rubber Man. In an era with incredibly slow cross-continental communication, without the internet or instant replays, two separate men, thousands of miles apart, organically developed the exact same elastic, gravity-defying style of play and earned the same moniker. Yet, despite this shared identity, they left very, very different legacies on the game.
To settle this debate today, we're going to use a tale-of-the-tape approach. We'll introduce our two titans of the 30s, look at their mastery of aerial acrobatics, dive into Erico's status as the club king, Leonidas' run as the global icon, and finally, compare their enduring legacies.
All right, part one. Let's officially meet the contenders in this historic heavyweight matchup. Two titans of the 30s.
On one side of the ring, we've got Arsenio Erico, the Paraguayan goal machine. A lot of people called him the Red Jumper during his time at Independiente, and his absolute signature move was the mind-bending scorpion kick. And then on the flip side stands Leonidas da Silva, the Brazilian global superstar. Known as the Black Diamond, he was famous literally all over the world for his spectacular bicycle kick. Two brilliant acrobatic rubber men going head-to-head.
Moving right along to round two, masters of aerial acrobatics. Both of these guys earned that Rubberman nickname because they were absolute innovators in the air. Honestly, these two basically rewrote the laws of physics on the pitch. Picture being a referee at the 1938 World Cup. You're officiating a match, right? And suddenly, this Brazilian forward leaps backwards into the air, totally parallel to the ground, and just smashes the ball with an overhead kick. The ref was famously stunned. He literally didn't know if Leonidas' bicycle kick was legal because, well, human bodies just weren't supposed to do that. But while Leonidas was blasting that move into the mainstream, Erico was over in Argentina inventing the impossible. Back in 1934, playing for Independiente against their fierce rivals Boca Juniors, Erico misjudges a cross. But instead of giving up on a bad header, he launches his body forward, dives parallel to the grass, and miraculously flicks the ball into the net with his heels in midair. He essentially invented the scorpion kick decades before René Higuita made it famous in the 90s. Pure magic.
To really wrap your head around Erico's impact, you gotta look at who idolized him. The legendary Alfredo Di Stefano. You know, the engine behind the original Real Madrid dynasty? A guy routinely mentioned in the same breath as Pelé and Maradona? He openly admitted he modeled his game after Erico. But get this, Di Stefano confessed he could only achieve about 5% of Erico's magic. Let that sink in for a second. Di Stefano called him a circus juggler and a great artist. If the blonde arrow himself feels inadequate compared to you, your talent is definitely off the charts. The great Uruguayan writer Eduardo Galeano described this perfectly. He wrote that Erico seemed to have secret springs hidden in his body. Now, we all know goalkeepers have a massive advantage, right? They can use their arms. But Galeano pointed out that Erico could jump from a total standstill, no run-up whatsoever, and his head would still reach higher than the goalie's outstretched hands. He was just an absolute nightmare for defenders. They physically couldn't match his vertical leap.
All right, round three, Erico, the club king. Let's look at his absolute, undeniable dominance of domestic club football in Argentina.
Just pause for a second. Think about the sheer volume of world-class attacking talent Argentina has produced or hosted over the last century. Maradona, Batistuta, Kempes, Agüero, Messi. Yet playing mostly for Independiente, Arsenio Erico scored 295 goals. That makes him the all-time highest goal scorer in the entire history of the Argentine First Division. Out of all the absolute legends to ever lace up their boots in that league, this quiet Paraguayan sits alone at the very top of the mountain. No way, right? But it's true.
And his peak? It was terrifying.
In the 1937 season alone, Erico netted an unbelievable 47 goals in just 34 matches. If you do the math, that's nearly 1.4 goals per game. We're talking modern video game level production happening back in the 1930s. He set an untouchable single-season record and used that momentum to lead Independiente to back-to-back titles right after. Just a completely unstoppable goal-scoring machine.
But here's my absolute favorite part about him. Despite all that dominance, Erico had this deeply eccentric, anti-commercial streak. In 1938, a big tobacco company called Cigarillos 43 offered a massive cash prize to any player who finished the tournament with exactly 43 goals. Erico hits 43 goals, but there are still games left to play. So what does the ultimate goal scorer do? He intentionally stops shooting. In a game where his team is just destroying their opponents 6-1, Erico finds himself in front of a wide-open net multiple times, and he just refuses to score his 44th goal. He stubbornly passed the ball away every single time, explicitly avoiding the goal just so he wouldn't win that tobacco company's prize. He wanted absolutely nothing to do with the commercial spotlight. Now let's pivot to round 4, Leonidas, the global icon. His career was completely different, defined by massive international fame and breaking down huge societal barriers.
While Erico stayed fiercely loyal to his roots, famously refusing huge amounts of money to switch allegiances and play for the Argentine national team, Leonidas stepped right onto the global stage. The 1938 World Cup in France was this massive watershed moment where South American flair really announced itself to the European audience, and Leonidas was the poster boy. He completely dazzled everyone, taking home the Golden Boot as the tournament's top scorer with 7 goals.
And during that 1938 World Cup, Leonidas gave us a moment of pure football folklore. It perfectly captures his natural genius. Brazil is playing Poland in Strasbourg, it's pouring rain, the pitch is essentially a swamp of thick mud, and the match turns into this chaotic 6-5 extra-time thriller. Right in the middle of this madness, Leonidas' boot gets sucked completely off his foot in the deep mud. But he doesn't stop. He keeps playing, finds the ball, and actually scores a goal completely barefoot. The sheer audacity to just keep playing a World Cup match without boots, let alone score, cemented his legend forever.
But to only talk about his spectacular goals totally misses the immense cultural weight of his career. Back in the 1930s, Brazilian football was deeply segregated by rigid class and racial barriers. It started as an elitist sport for the wealthy and white. Leonidas was right at the forefront of shattering those prejudices. When he joined the traditionally aristocratic Flamengo team in 1936 as a black player, it wasn't just a transfer, it was a societal earthquake. His humble beginnings, combined with his undeniable success, transformed him into a massive national idol for the working classes. He literally changed the very fabric of who was allowed to be a hero in Brazil.
All right, let's head into round 5, comparing their enduring legacies. Let's see how the distinct paths of these two titans built into the modern era. Their legacies actually reflect their personalities perfectly. Erico, the quiet and loyal clubman, has his name literally cemented into the foundations of the sport itself. Club National Stadium in Paraguay is named after him, along with grandstands in major national stadiums across both Paraguay and Argentina. Leonidas, on the flip side, was this trailblazing commercial superstar. His fame was so massive that in 1939, the Brazilian chocolate maker Lacta named a hugely successful chocolate bar after his nickname, the Diamante Negro. And what's wild is that you can still walk into a supermarket in Brazil today, buy that exact chocolate bar, and literally take a bite out of 1930s football history. How cool is that?
The reverence for Erico today is deeply somber and respectful. He lived a really humble, quiet life, didn't even get married until he was 45, and pretty much avoided the media spotlight entirely. When he passed away in Buenos Aires in 1977, fans at an Independiente match just organically started chanting, "Erico is present." Such a beautiful tribute to a guy who gave them so much joy. And his impact was so profound for his home nation that decades later in 2010, his remains were officially repatriated to Paraguay. He was laid to rest in a custom Heroes Mausoleum inside the Defensores del Chaco Stadium.
Now, while Erico was the quiet hero, Leonidas was a full-blown rock star. He lived his life in the bright, blinding spotlight. When he won a championship in 1931, massive crowds literally danced in the streets of Rio to celebrate him. In 1938, he won this huge national popularity contest, pulling in nearly 250,000 votes. And when he made his debut for São Paulo in 1942, he completely shattered attendance records, drawing over 70,000 fans. That is a staggering, almost unthinkable crowd size for a domestic club debut back in that era.
So here's our final tale of the tape. On one hand, you have the ultimate domestic record holder. Arsenio Erico owns the history books with 295 goals, invented the impossible scorpion kick, and embodied this quiet, humble loyalty to his craft. Versus, on the other hand, the pioneer of the global stage. Leonidas da Silva owns the international spotlight with a World Cup Golden Boot, popularized the spectacular bicycle kick, and stood as a trailblazing commercial superstar who bravely broke through rigid racial barriers.
The Club King or the global icon? Based on all the evidence we just went through, who do you think takes the ultimate crown as the absolute greatest South American footballer before the era of Pelé and Maradona? Is it the quiet, goal-scoring perfection of Arsenio Erico, or the barrier-breaking, global flair of Leonidas da Silva? I'd absolutely love to hear your thoughts on this, so let me know where you stand on this incredible piece of football history, and I'll see you in the next explainer.